In global politics, alliances shift with the winds of national interest. What once seemed permanent can change overnight as nations reassess their priorities and ambitions. For years, the US and India, world's oldest and largest democracies, seemed natural partners, united by shared values and strategic goals. Their cooperation was seen as a cornerstone of stability in a rapidly changing world. But today, August 20th, 2025, India is quietly recalibrating, turning its gaze toward China. This subtle shift is sending ripples through the corridors of power worldwide. This isn't a dramatic break, but a calculated pivot with global consequences. The world is watching as India redefines its place on the international stage. Prime Minister Modi is signaling that India will not be anyone's junior partner. It will chart its own course, seeking advantage in both Washington and Beijing. India's leaders are making it clear, their nation's interests come first. India's declaration of strategic autonomy is now unmistakable. The world must adjust to a new reality where India acts independently, forging its own alliances. The signs are in quiet diplomatic meetings, new trade deals, and renewed cross-border investments. Behind closed doors, agreements are being made that could reshape the balance of power in Asia. While the world focused on US-China rivalry, India and China began lowering border tensions and exploring economic cooperation. Old adversaries are now finding common ground, opening doors to new opportunities. India's logic is simple. In an uncertain world, more options mean more power. By diversifying its partnerships, India is hedging its bets and increasing its influence. For the US, this shift challenges the very foundation of its Indo-Pacific strategy, forcing American policymakers to rethink their assumptions about regional alliances and the future of the Quad. The alliance's unity is now being tested as India asserts its independence. Did Washington take India for granted, or did it underestimate India's desire for autonomy and respect on the world stage? What does this mean for global stability and the future of democracy? The answers will shape the next era of international relations. The story of India's pivot is the story of our time, a new chapter in the dance of giants where every step reshapes the world. The US-India partnership was once celebrated as a defining alliance of the 21st century, a relationship that many believed would shape the global order for decades to come. At its core, this partnership was rooted in shared democratic values, both nations priding themselves on vibrant democracies, free elections, and the protection of civil liberties. Both countries, despite their differences in history and culture, championed the rule of law and individual rights, overcoming decades of Cold War suspicions and forging a new path forward. The Indian diaspora in America became a living bridge, strengthening ties in business, technology, and culture, and fostering a sense of shared destiny between the two peoples. The relationship blossomed in the 2000s, highlighted by the landmark US-India Civil Nuclear Agreement, which ended India's nuclear isolation and marked a turning point in trust and cooperation. This historic deal unlocked unprecedented cooperation in defense and intelligence, and the two nations found common cause in promoting a free and open Indo-Pacific, countering regional threats together. Defense trade soared, joint military exercises expanded, and India became a key buyer of US military hardware, deepening strategic trust and interoperability between their armed forces. The logic was clear: a strong, democratic India would serve as a vital counterbalance to China's rise, anchoring stability in Asia and reinforcing the global democratic order. Yet, even in good times, economic frictions persisted. Trade disputes, intellectual property issues, and market access remained sticking points that tested the partnership's resilience. India's protectionist policies often clashed with US demands for open markets, and Washington frequently used trade leverage to push for reforms and concessions. These disagreements, though managed diplomatically, revealed deeper differences in economic philosophy and priorities, sometimes straining the spirit of cooperation. Over time, these cracks widened, exposing vulnerabilities in the alliance and reminding both sides that even the strongest partnerships require constant nurturing. The partnership, while strong and resilient, was never immune to the pressures of national interest, shifting priorities, and the changing tides of global politics. These underlying tensions would later be exploited, creating new and complex challenges for both nations as they navigated an uncertain future together. The Trump era marked a dramatic turning point in US-India relations, shifting the tone from partnership to rivalry almost overnight. President Trump's transactional approach to foreign policy replaced the language of shared democratic values with a new focus on economic confrontation and hard bargaining. India, with its growing trade surplus, quickly became a target. Its preferential trade status was abruptly revoked, sending shockwaves through diplomatic circles. This move was more than just an economic setback. It was a political blow, signaling a sudden lack of trust between the two nations and raising questions about the future of their partnership. Trump's rhetoric, calling India the tariff king, fueled a narrative of unfairness, overshadowing years of strategic progress and cooperation between the countries. For India, this unpredictability was a wake-up call. Could the US truly be counted on as a reliable, long-term ally, or would economic interests always come first? The experience forced India to reassess its reliance on Washington, prompting leaders to revive their commitment to strategic autonomy and self-reliance in global affairs. New Delhi realized it needed to diversify its partnerships, including with China and other regional powers, to avoid being caught off guard again. Ironically, the Trump years didn't draw India closer to America. Instead, they pushed India to explore a more independent, multi-aligned foreign policy, seeking new friends and opportunities. The trust built over years began to erode, and India started actively seeking new options, forging relationships that would give it greater leverage on the world stage. This shift set the stage for India's surprising diplomatic maneuvers, as it reached out to both old rivals and new partners in pursuit of its national interests. The lesson was clear. In a world of shifting alliances and unpredictable leaders, India would not put all its eggs in one basket, but instead build a web of global partnerships. Strategic autonomy became more than just a guiding principle. It became a necessity for India's future, shaping its foreign policy for years to come. With America unpredictable, India quietly re-evaluated its relationship with China, not out of affection, but pragmatism. After near conflict in Doklam, Modi and Xi held informal summits, agreeing to manage differences and avoid disputes. India also leaned into multilateral forums like BRICS, finding common ground with China on global financial reform and resisting Western protectionism. Economically, China is a top trading partner and a source of investment and technology, vital for India's manufacturing ambitions. The Modi government recognized that stable ties with Beijing were essential for economic growth. India's new strategy is multi-alignment, engaging all major powers to maximize its own options. Cooperation with China on trade and climate change is balanced by firmness on border and security issues. It's a delicate balancing act, requiring diplomatic skill and constant recalibration. India is betting it can walk this tightrope, leveraging both Washington and Beijing to its advantage. India and China's diplomatic strategy is now visible in real-world actions. On the contested border, both sides have engaged in military and diplomatic talks, leading to phased disengagement in Ladakh. The focus has shifted from confrontation to creating buffer zones and preventing accidental conflict. Economically, doors are reopening. Indian conglomerates like Adani are partnering with Chinese firms like BYD to build electric vehicles. Chinese investments are returning, especially in renewables and consumer electronics, as long as they align with India's priorities. People-to-people contact is resuming. Visas, flights, and cultural exchanges are back on the agenda. These steps rebuild trust and normalize interactions between the world's two most populous nations. Modi's government sees a stable relationship with China as essential for domestic growth and investment. This is not an alliance, but a transactional engagement. Respect our interests and we'll be constructive partners. The ball is now in Beijing's court. India is signaling openness, but only if its sovereignty is respected. The next moves will determine if this thaw endures. Despite the thaw, deep contradictions remain. The unresolved border dispute and China's claims on Arunachal Pradesh fuel mistrust. China's close ties with Pakistan, especially the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor through disputed territory, challenge India's sovereignty. As long as China supports Pakistan, a true strategic partnership is impossible. India's participation in the Quad complicates matters. Beijing sees it as containment, while India insists it's for a free Indo-Pacific. Both nations compete for influence in Asia and the Indian Ocean, often through infrastructure and aid. Even as they cooperate, rivalry persists. The relationship will remain a mix of cooperation and competition, a delicate dance between giants. India's pivot is part of a larger shift to a multipolar world. The old logic of choosing sides is obsolete. Countries now form flexible, issue-based coalitions. India is a swing state. Its choices shape the global balance of power. Both Washington and Beijing know they can't afford to lose India's favor, giving New Delhi leverage. India plays both sides, leaning toward China when the US pushes too hard, and vice versa. New minilateral groups like I2, U2 and BRICS let India build a web of relationships, enhancing autonomy. It's not about being pro-American or pro-Chinese, but pro-India. For ordinary people, this means cheaper goods, more jobs, and better technology. By skillfully navigating this world, India aims for peace and prosperity at home. The success of this strategy will shape the lives of 1.4 billion people and the future of global politics. India's balancing act between the US and China is one of the defining dramas of our era. Expect more high-level diplomacy as India refuses to be tied to either power. For the US, India's pivot is a wake-up call. Washington must treat New Delhi as a true partner, not a subordinate. For China, engagement with India is both an opportunity and a test. Genuine concessions are needed for lasting stability. India's engagement is conditional. Any major provocation could reverse the thaw. The world should watch closely. India's moves will shape the future of global politics. If India succeeds, it could model a stable, multipolar world. If it fails, the world risks a return to rigid, hostile blocs. The stakes could not be higher. We stand at a pivotal moment in history, with India at the epicenter of global change. The simple narrative of a US-India alliance against China is gone. India is choosing itself. Strategic autonomy is now its defining feature, turning rivalry into opportunity. The world is watching. Can India sustain this balancing act? The answers will redraw the map of global power for a generation. This is not just a story for diplomats, it affects supply chains, technology, and peace in Asia and beyond. India is now a rule setter, not just a player. The world would do well to pay attention.